Hello. Today we're looking at another one of Maharani's high playout KataGo games. For more info about this game series, you can check out the link in the description. As normal with these reviews, as the game is way above my level, I will only try to sort of take some lessons from it and sort of mostly enjoy the ride. We won't be able to point out much mistakes or anything like that, but hopefully it will be educational and entertaining. So to start out, Black makes an opposing Komaku opening, and then a 2-space high enclosure. Now, White could also make an enclosure here, and we could get something like a very peaceful, almost boring opening with enclosures in every corner. But instead, White opts to approach here once. Black responds with a Kosomi, and then White makes an enclosure. So it's an interesting choice to sort of throw the stone there, allow Black to immediately attack it, and say that, okay, even though I'm going to immediately abandon this stone, the Aji left behind by it makes it worthwhile to make that approach there. Because now White still, White could save p17 at this moment, and it would be another game. Let's see, maybe something like this. Sort of White can run out with his stones, but White is not going to make a lot of territory with this group. It will just sort of run away. So it makes sense to me to just leave it at this point and make a more profitable move. This then allows Black to completely kill the stone, but Black throws an approach first and then finishes it off like this. So, okay, if we focus for now on the upper right corner, if we ignore sort of Black has 4 moves, White has 1 move. So one way to look at it is that Black has spent 3 moves in this corner. So we could compare it to something like, I don't know, let's make something up down here. Let's say like something like this corner, which is one way to make an enclosure with 3 stones, which happens sometimes. We'd sort of expect Black to get a similar amount of profit from the upper right as this lower left corner. I would say that the upper right is slightly bigger in terms of area, but I think there's also slightly more Aji with the p17 stone. And it's very hard to sort of have a feeling for at my level how valuable the p17 stone is. So I asked KataGo what would be so now the game is even, of course, we're still early in the opening. It's about 50% win rate according to KataGo. And if you just remove p17 from the board, it drops down to Black has over 90% win rate. So that gives you some idea of how important p17 is and how much Aji there is in it. We will also see in the game how White manages to use that one stone. Maybe I can immediately show like one thing to be looking at throughout the game is like this, attach and double hane, or attach and hane. This is not really immediately doing much. Black can, for instance, Atari connect here, and note that White can't, White kills this one stone and gets squeezed like this, it's just completely dead, so that's no good. White can play here, and well, now if Black were to respond, things would be a bit different. So maybe at this point, Black can drop down here, White pushes out. Black trying to keep this in would be a bit of an overplay, so at this time Black can come back. White gets to save this stone somehow, but we see that this is not really attractive for White to do right away. At most, White is going to get sort of a small group, which is just settling locally or even having to fight a bit to survive. So just gives an idea of there is some magic there, but it's not really a good idea for White to try to save the stone. It's better to leave it for later. So instead, White is going to pincer here on the left, starting to develop the whole lower side of the board, and Black counter pincers. Now in this sort of situation, I would generally be inclined to kick here to prevent this black group from just jumping into the corner. But it seems like in this case, let's see, white doesn't really mind too much. Either like jumping into the corner or sliding like this isn't really anything to be worried about in this case. And then we could almost think of kicking as sort of helping black to move out faster. Notice that d6 is one line closer to the center now compared to c6. So it's almost like white is kicking and saying, okay, if you want to run out into the center here, be my guest, but then I get to kick now. And now it's a bit more awkward because the local shape here is to drop down to the second line, but now black is less out in the center. So black doesn't jump out. Black goes with attach. And wait, I guess one more thing I want to mention here was also another option for white would be this, something like this attach. This is something I wanted to ask KataGo about this, because I always like to play this attach when I can. Saying that if black tries to honey here, white does a very pleasant cut. And indeed, this would be a bit good for white, this variation, it seems like, because white can double honey here, and it's not possible for black to Atari this way. D3 is about to be captured, or this 4 stone is about to be captured, so black is collapsing here. So black might have to settle for something like this, and it's a bit sad for black. So black is not going to do that here. Black instead, if white attaches, black could, for instance, play this wedge, and white can Atari, and now black is threatening to ladder at d7, but also to push through at e4. So white sort of has to play this slightly awkward shape here to prevent both of those at once. Then black can extend c7, threatening the c4 cut to capture c5. Black can squeeze these stones. Atari ones, let's see, something like this. This was one of the variations KataGo gave, and I thought it was really funny that this is still sort of evenish result. It's such an ugly shape for both sides even. I mean, black has this big dumpling, but a Punuki to compensate for it, kind of. And white has this f3 empty triangle here, which looks a bit awkward. But this is apparently about even. So just a funny variation. And worth keeping in mind that you don't always have to Han in this shape. I think this was also another reasonable option for black. You know, just living in the corner somehow is also quite okay. Okay, anyways, that's another game. White jumps, and black goes for this one. Trying to settle in the corner. But white is not going to allow black to just live in the corner. White plays the double Hana like this, and black really doesn't want to just settle small along this side here in this small area. Black is really wanting to try to get out, not only to reduce the white influence, but also to possibly get an attack on these 2 white stones. So black plays very forcefully here. Atari, Atari, and push, like this. And we can see that locally, black doesn't really have a good result. White is quite solid and is making a lot of territory on the lower side. While black still has, this group still a lot of shape weakness. You notice b4 here is left behind. But black is at least poking its head out here now with f6 and can start to put some pressure on these 2 white stones. So it's sort of a trade-off there. Okay, so black peeps here, and it would be a bit heavy for white to just connect. So white tries to instead use the weakness of black with this peep. It's quite forcing, and then push like this. So there is still this option for black to push and cut here, but it would be a horrible idea to do it right now. White can maybe like Atari, 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 something like this. It's quite horrible for black. So that's not worth thinking about for now. Also, black has to be a bit concerned about white playing like h7, just enclosing this black group. So black actually pushes once here. It's sort of painful to push from behind here on the 6th line. White is making 5th line territory here. But it's worth it not to be entirely enclosed with this group. Now it's a bit harder for white to spend one move here and enclose the black group entirely. And then black comes back here. So this is helping black shape here, and it's also setting up, still probably not a good idea for black to push and cut. Let's say white just passes. Like this would still be not very good for black. But what black could do is connect underneath like this. So that's at least a sort of safety plan B for this group here, to connect in this way. See, there's no way for white to disconnect black here. But it will be quite passive, so this is not something black is looking forward to doing in reality, but the option is there. Okay, so in the game, white attaches, continues to strengthen this group. And then black does go for this push, but not to b8. Like I said, that's a bit too passive, but black wants to get this peep in, which if white just responds, that's quite a pleasant exchange for black. So white actually just ignores it and plays up here, sort of probing move in this corner. Now, normal shape instinct in this corner would be, I think, probably d16, trying to stay strongly connected with the stones. White can probably make some life, but it's going to be a bit painful, and the result is locally quite okay for black. But the situation is a bit different now that black is strong on the outside. Black almost wants to think about just killing the stone more outright, but it's still, there's a bit too much weakness on the outside to do it right now. So black just ignores d17 entirely, plays this f13 move, saying that, okay, if you want to like wreck my corner, you can go ahead, but then I get a very nice attack on the center group. So this is sort of based on the fact that white responds here in the game. It seems like this move is centered towards the center group. White plays here, which at first glance, this looks to me like it's preventing black from cutting here, but it's still perfectly possible for black to cut here. This is not a ladder. But this is preventing black from killing everything. Black can maybe kill one part, but now the white group is quite flexible. And so like playing here would not be as severe as an attack as it was previously. But now black got the f13 move in, so comes back and plays this move. And now this is saying that d17 is now completely dead. Black wants all of this territory. And normally you wouldn't be able to play f18 because white could like push out like this and just get into the center. But now there's nowhere to run. Black has the stones here. So this is just dead inside. There's not enough space. But just like the p17 stone, this is not like wasted for white. White is going to find some ways to use this stone later as well. Okay. Also, one thing black paid here, black made this exchange, then came back. That means that white got, in effect, 2 moves in a row down here. So that's also kind of nice for white. Black still gets this Hana though, which is huge. Maybe it doesn't look so realistic now to attack this group at the moment, but it is sort of putting some pressure on it. But mainly this upper side is looking humongous. Like, look at this awesome influence black has up here. So black plays the Hana, white connects here, which then is starting to put in question who is really attacking where. Remember, originally black was attacking this white group, but this black group is also without ice for the moment. And white is quite strong out here, so I think I would be quite scared as black about this group, but KataGo doesn't care. It extends here. And again, like this is threatening to capture 2 stones, but obviously that's not the main idea of this move. It is mainly continuing to build in the center, and it has a little bit to do, I think, with activating the idea of f8. Later on, pulling out at f9 is going to be a bit of a threat, but that's quite far in the future. So for now, white continues to help this group. I guess that's one way of saying it also. This is putting pressure on the whole of this white group, not these 2 stones. So it has to continue to help the group. This jump. And now I think there's some reason to be a bit concerned for the group. So black actually spends 1 move here, plays this one, which is quite big. If white doesn't respond to this, let's pass, I guess. This would be now the group is 100% alive, and this is also threatening to play d2. So b5 is black center, white plays is Atari. But then black says that's enough. I'm already fine with this group and plays away. So to me, this looks really strange. This looks like, okay, this group is still on the brink of dying. But it seems like white can't really kill it cleanly with one more move. There are sort of at least 3 different resources black has here. There's the fact that this cut is annoying. If, let's say, white like extends here, which is maybe the best shape for the white group, then black has this Atari, and suddenly there's another eye there. And also there's some potential to move out in this to the center area. And then there's the fact that black can play here. White probably can't fight this ko, so let's say white has to come back here, then black got some extra eye shape, and also this move is threatening to connect to b9. So like white can take away like one of these, but it seems like it's going to be a ko at best to kill the group, and that's maybe not enough at this stage of this game. But yeah, this is quite hard for me to understand how it's possible to leave a group like this hanging in this way, because it seems like when black plays away, white could find an opportunity to like attack this group, but they're both just going to leave it for a while now. So down here, black is starting to sort of do something about this huge white moyo we have. So black jumps in like this. For me, what I would expect here would be something like Atari and go down. Oops. But instead we get white goes down, black connects, and then tiger's mouth. So exactly the same result, but sort of funny order of moves there. Then black pushes, and Hana. This is a thing I didn't really... When I see a shape like this, I just sort of assume that this cut is not working. But white could actually cut here. I only realized this like after looking through the games several times. I wonder, wait a minute, why doesn't white cut here? And one way for black to handle this is to sacrifice the 4 stones like this. Because we see black gets some quite pleasant... the Q9 stone here is like completely neutralized, and black is building a lot on the upper side. So it can be okay, I guess, for black to sacrifice this way. So white doesn't cut, instead plays the double Hana to keep the maximum pressure here on this group. Black plays Atari, and then now it's a bit awkward for black. If you connect solidly, then you leave behind this shape point here, which can be annoying later on. So instead, black plays the tiger's mouth to keep some more eye shape here. Like p6 is probably going to be an eye, but then white gets this peep instead, which is also a bit painful. So we have that, and white turns here. This is a bit surprising. I don't think I would ever come up with this move in a game myself. I think the value of this move is that it's keeping up the pressure on this black group, maybe taking away some eye shape along the side here. But it's also providing an escape hatch for like Q9 here, which could come under attack on the right side. So yeah, I guess it's those 2 things. That's the values I can come up for this strange second line move here. Black throws in a probing cut here. White can choose to capture it in 2 different ways. It's very hard for me to really tell here. Like, it's possible that there would be some sort of Aji with N5 here, but I have a really hard time seeing it. But KataGo decides to capture it in this way, which has the small advantage, like imagine later on we have S6, then eventually, R3 is going to be captured, or T5 is going to be Santa. So something like that black is going to get here. It's quite a small thing. Then black chooses this time to play A4. Just like before, like A2 is still such a big... Black winning this ko still has this really big follow-up at D2. So it seems white doesn't even bother, doesn't even want to take the ko once. White just connects immediately. I don't really understand why not take at least once, make black spend one co threat. That seems like that's the usual idea. You should always take the co once. I'm not sure if there's a reason or it just doesn't matter in this case. But okay, white just connects. And then black continues to help this center group. So black jumps out, white turns here. This is another one. This is also similar to S5. It looks sort of slow to me. But now, when you see, in response to this move, black suddenly plays B7. So now you can realize that, okay, maybe now this was the turning point where now it's no longer possible to run out. It's probably harder for black to get some sort of run out and split this white group off. Like white got much stronger in this area. So now black has to come back and actually prevent this group from dying. B7 is threatening to connect underneath here, so white exchanges one Hane to put a stop to that. And it seems like even black is saying that I can afford to play B11 here, and it's still okay inside. Again, here when I try to play this out myself, I think it looks to me like this is a code. Like if white really goes for it here, I don't see how black can live outright here. Maybe I'm missing something, but it's really hard to analyze this with KataGo because it's, it will just say, oh, black just captures here, gives it up, or plays the co. It doesn't give an outright black and live, or so. It just doesn't care about it. So maybe that should be my takeaway too. I shouldn't be so worried, is it alive or not? Just, it's okay if it's a co. So they leave it for now. White extends on the right side. We can see that, so black is building both on the top, but also since these two white stones here could have a potential to come under attack, it's quite important for white to extend here to establish a presence here on the right side. R12 is also going to be kind of useful later on to activate some Aji in this corner. So that's another reason why it's nice for white to have stone here. Black is going to continue trying to build a center, so attaches once here, then plays Tengen. Moving away with this group while also building the center. So now white has quite a huge task here of invading this area. This is way too big to allow black to make all of this into territory. And when you have to do an invasion like this, you have to look at the opponent's weaknesses. So we have to think, okay, what resources does white have here? There are these Aji stones. White is going to have to use both of these. White is also going to have to use the fact that this whole black group here is still potentially weak. If white can cut this off, and black also has to worry about living with this group, then white is going to have a much easier time living in the center. So white actually starts poking from this area, sort of wondering if there's a cut here, I think. Like, let's say black harness, then maybe there's a lot more possibilities here for the future. Maybe not right away, maybe after playing some stuff in the center. So it's sort of a probing move from the outside, asking black what sort of weaknesses will be available here. Black plays a really awesome counter probe here. Plays this double peep. It's such a sharp move. As a human, I would be so concerned about keeping my center points, but KataGo hasn't forgotten about this white group, which still has a weakness. At this time, it's really not possible for white to connect here, because not only does J10 looks kind of stupid now when there's like this move available, but also like it doesn't even save, like, not that black can still like come out with this stone and get to kill at least these white stones. So it doesn't really make sense to white respond here. White has to stay focused on the sort of more important picture, which is the center, the weakness of this black group. But this means that later on, there's a lot of weakness here, and black is going to get something quite big out of it, but we'll see that later. So after ensuring that exchange, black jumps in the center, and now the probing is done, and white has to take the leap and jump inside. So white chooses this point. It may look a bit random, just throwing a stone inside at first, but it's very well chosen. It's threatening something like N18 here. So it's actively looking at the Aji of P17. Black actually spends a move to prevent anything like that happening. And then white, let's see, I think white first, yeah, pushes out here once, and then h16. So now it's looking to connect to this stone. It is something like the f15 attach, would also be annoying for black. So then black has to spend a passive move there to prevent that. So we see the sort of white gets first, like this AB exchange and then the CD exchange. Both of those are thanks to these RG stones from earlier. Then white, no, doesn't do that. Oh, okay, white does this exchanges here. But white can still not live in the corner. This is just... White is going to use some cope threats here later on, but I think that's mostly it. I think there's not much happening in this corner. Then white jumps in the center. Let's see, what was next? I think this one. Black takes away any possibility for white to make a base here and have some ice. White moves away like this. Black keeps around it, and like we're entering into the territory here now where this is so above my level, it's not even funny. So I won't be able to explain most of these moves, but we'll try to enjoy the ride here. Watch white scramble for life inside. Okay, we have white attaches here, still trying to make a little bit of shape, but it's really impossible to imagine. Like, can white really make twice inside? Probably not. White pushes down here. We can see that, okay, this is threatening. Like, if white can get like these points, there's some potential there. So there's something happening, but black peeps here, denying the ice. We have this Atari. White jumps here. This is really strange to me. Like, this seems quite cuttable, but again, white seems to be focusing on still the weakness of this black group down here. It's too complicated for me to really give a variation, but I think this move has to do with, yeah, also keeping black on its toes, kind of. Black cuts through here. We can see that, let's see immediately, white pushes down here. So white sacrificed these two stones, but black is not able to connect here now because then these stones would die. So it's not too bad. Sort of black has to come back here anyways, and later on white can play this move. So it's fine for white to give up these two stones. Okay, then white comes back and connects in the center. So now we see that sort of there is a cut around here. So black really needs to take care of this group. Black attaches once, and then here white comes out, and it seems like now maybe this black group has sort of Miai of connecting here or here, because black plays away for a moment at least. So, I mean, one thing that makes this game so confusing is that often you have a natural sequence of moves, but it's not played out all at once. It's only played like... So now black makes one exchange here, but then immediately leaves it and comes back into the center. And it's hard to tell, did black really have to make this exchange at this exact time, or could it have waited until later? I'm not sure. But we'll just have to like keep in mind that, okay, there's something happening here on the left, but it's on pause for now, and we're going to continue in the center, come back to that later. Black extends. And okay, so when black extends here, this white group does not have an easy connection out here, so white has to continue play to help it. Black plays a meaningless, wasting a code right here. This is definitely, this cannot be a good move, but it apparently doesn't make a difference. Same here. Then, okay, so now we see when black pulls out here, it is threatening. It's not really possible for white to capture these two stones, and black is threatening both these two cuts. We can see that white is going to have to give something up in this area. White connects here for now. Then black connects in the center. Now, okay, so white is not able to make two eyes locally here. So white is again focused on black weaknesses, saying that this move is really... Black is not really going to be able to connect with this part out this way after this move. So black comes back and makes this move, which is kind of strengthening this connection, but also making some eye shape here. So maybe this black group can make two eyes locally. We have this exchange, this one. So notice here that, yeah, with this move, black can't capture because then this Atari kills two stones. Black has to come back. Place here, and of course white is going to be annoying and play this ko. But black doesn't even take the ko right away. Black continues this sequence down here. So let's just look at it slow motion. Black plays here, white plays here, so this is connecting either to e10 or g8. Black pushes here, threatening now to cut off everything. White is saying that, okay, if you try to cut me off right now, then I can cut here, and it's not looking so good for you. So black can't do that, but instead black comes back and connects here. White connects here, black Ataris, and white has to come back and connect. So what just happened? Black just killed all of these stones in center. So this group that I was worried about, just is it alive, is it a ko, it just made a huge amount of points in center. So that's quite funny. It is a small price to pay here that k8, this last stone white played, has an effect on the center group. You notice this L9 Atari here. Black is weaker now in the center, so black paid something for it. But still, black gets tempted to come back and capture this ko up here. So I think this looks way too good for black. But of course, the game is still even, according to KataGo. White extends in the center. White is really going to try to use the fact now that black suddenly got quite weak in the center. Like originally it was the black center moyo, but now with black sort of really going in for the attack here, but then white, skillfully sacrificing and making shape in the center and getting k8. Now black is the one that is weak here. Black removes the ko agi now. This ko is quite annoying. Let's just make some random move. Let's say white captures here. Black can't really just back off like this, I think, because, well, I'm not sure, but this looks kind of annoying to me. So it seems worthwhile to just remove this. And now white gets to cut here. So it's a really tall order for black to... Black is not going to be able to save everything here. If black spends the time like connecting everything, everything will just die. Black has to focus on making eyes with the main part down here. So black just makes one Atari, and then, let's see, peeps here. Still looking at white's weaknesses. Okay, now white cuts here. Well, I don't know. White is both cutting off this black group, but also ensuring a connection to this white group up here. So black extends. We have a quick Atari, and then here. So now again, sort of locally, it looks like white is not entirely connected, but black can't really afford to just cut white off here. Black is dying with these 3 stones and this whole group. Black has too many weaknesses to cut white off. So this really shows what we were saying earlier, that white surviving with the inside group is really dependent on the weakness of this black group. The black has to spend a move here to make eyes with this group. That gives white the time to connect out. Okay, black plays a sort of peeping move here. White denies some more eye shape, so let's see, 06 here is still a secure eye, but black has to make one more eye around L9 here. And white plays this wedge and is saying to black that you can't save your stones here, because when I throw in like this, you have no eyes and you will die. So black is going to be forced to connect here and give up these stones. So that's part of white's profit that white got in return for, in exchange for dying on the left here. What makes the game still even is in part that white is killing these stones. Actually, before doing that, black plays another one of those meaningless throwing away a ko threat. This one is really interesting to me. If white captures at p2, it's quite obvious that black hasn't gained anything with this exchange. Like, white having a stone at p2 is in no way bad for white. It's not going to be like reducing white's liberties in any variation. So this would be, if I were playing white and my opponent played this move as a time Suji, I would just play here without thinking much about it. In the game, white plays t3. So this has a potential benefit of removing, like, so after p2, eventually it may be the case that like if we get to here, now eventually white is going to have to spend an extra move to capture 2 stones. So white is trying to be really efficient here, trying to play that move and saying, aha, this may be like a 1 point loss for you, possibly, because I was already going to play t3 in some variations. And the only way this can be okay for black to make this exchange is if somehow the p3 stone is going to end up useful, which seems really unlikely at this point. But black is going to make it happen. So this white move, this is sort of like anthropomorphizing a bit there. Black is saying, okay, I can just play this move, it doesn't matter. White is saying, I don't think you can play that move. I think this could be a small loss for you. And white is asking black to prove, how are you actually going to use p3 to make it an okay exchange? So we'll see how that happens. Then black has to come back and live. And now, okay, now white starts the upper right. So thinking all the way back to the beginning when white played it p17 stone, we already saw how white used this stone to make the invasion, like several moves here that threatened to activate the agi of this stone, but it still has some life in it. White can still do this one, and it's super annoying. If black just tries to enclose it completely, white is not alive locally here, but black is too weak on the outside to really make this happen. Just something like this. Black is falling apart. We have A and B next. So black can't kill like this. So then black goes for this one. White harness. And it's a similar, like, again, they're going to play away before finishing the sequence, but let's just look at it. Black sort of needs the Han here to prevent the connection to this stone. White can threaten to make twice. Black peeps. And black is going to have to come back and disconnect from p17. And then white is going to be able to jump out here. And we're going to get, let's see, a ko like this on the right side. So that's what's going to happen soon in the game. But as usual, black already at this time decides to just ignore it and play h6 instead. Which is again really confusing. Why would you play h6 here? So this is threatening Hane at j5. But it's sort of confusing, like, what did black gain, for instance, if white just responds here? Did black really gain anything with this exchange? And if this move is actually good for black, h6, shouldn't white have played some Atari earlier? Like this is surely Senta. But I guess that's the same as white responding. I mean, I was really confused by this. Sudden h6, it just looks like such a strange point for black here. And even more so because white doesn't respond by sort of living in the upright or anything. White responds by taking this profit. So it's sort of like this where Miai for points. Black is saying, okay, I get this, which means that I'm going to get to reduce some points here eventually. And then white is saying, okay, you can have that, but then I'm going to take the points in the center. But it's also hard to tell if it's like, if white plays here, did it change the code threat situation for the code that's about to happen up here? Like, is this code threat slightly bigger than the earlier code threat available? So it's really hard for me to know what's the logic here. But anyways, this is what happens. Black connects here, white takes the points in the center, and then we continue the sequence. Then we continue the sequence in the upper right. Okay, so we get this ko here. This is the best both sides can do. Notice here you wouldn't like to, it may be tempting to try to disconnect this way, but then suddenly white is just connected entirely. So a tarring here is the best for black. And we have this ko. Oh, actually white doesn't fight it right away. So now it looks like white is sort of creating ko threats here, preparing for this ko. But again, this seems a bit strange. Is it really necessary to, aren't these ko threats already big enough? I'm not sure. You know, it can either be that it is necessary to play this way, or that it's fine either way and it doesn't matter. KataGo doesn't care. But we're going to see some exchanges up here. White cuts. Okay, but this is all going to die. None of this is working, but it is setting up some very large quote threats. Okay, now white finally starts to go. And okay, now we see that, yeah, this quote threat is probably a little bit bigger than anything white had before, so in some ways it makes sense. And now black is using J5 as a quote threat. And it's going to have a whole number of quote threats down here. So it's really interesting to wonder about, like, black exchanging H6 for this move in the center was really creating a lot of quote threats for black, and white didn't really get anything in return there. Okay, that's a quote threat. Black just continues extending. Just fast forwarding here. Now this is a really fun thing, because now we return to P3. This move, M5, would not have been a quote threat if it weren't for earlier on white answering at T3. If white would have just captured the stone, then there's no way for black to break in here. So M5 would have been worth like a few points, but definitely not a quote threat. So this is only working, and black can only get this. It's not only a matter of one quote threat, it's also black getting this move that is worth a few points in center. White has to respond, and obviously, like, the threat here is that black can attach, and white can't push through because of the liberty shortage here. So this would wreck the whole lower side. So this is the way that black found to use P3 earlier on, when, okay, black played P3, white answered T3, and then to make it worthwhile, black had to find this variation in the game, where it ended up that M5 was center. So that's quite cool, I think. Okay, eventually black is forced to back off. So yeah, we see that, like, it's not like black still couldn't win the ko here. Black was forced to back off. But getting those few points in center seems like it made a difference. Okay, we can see that white is also getting, like, before white got to kill all these stones, now white is also getting to kill these 3 stones. So white is getting a lot in the center to make up for the loss on the left and the territory black made on top and so on. Quick capture down here. And now we're basically into the quite late end game here. There's not much left. It's often like this in AA games. You have, like, huge fights, and then since you have fought so much, the board is almost full and there's not much end game left to play. Let's see, this move here is threatening to throw in at J6. It would kill these stones, so black has to connect. It connects, black connects. At this point, this T11 move is a fancy way to protect against something like Atari, and kill this. That will not work anymore when white has a stone here. And this also prevents a black Hana at T10, so it's kind of efficient like that. Black still makes one Atari here, and then prevents white from playing S8 to connect up on the first line here. White comes back here. This was another one of those small things, maybe nobody cares about this, but I wondered, why shouldn't black Atari here first, to take away 1 point from white? And I think it's definitely possible to do so. The idea in the game is that black is leaving the option if white chooses some other point. Let's see, where are the other points? I guess here is 2 pointer or something. Then black still has this option to throw in like this, which is slightly better. So by playing this center move, it is center, but it's also taking away another option for black. So here white immediately takes it, but then black has, then there are other points that black can take. So in the game, let's see, yeah, then black gets this one instead, so it doesn't really matter. I think that's basically the last of it. Yeah. The game ends here. It is a draw with 7-point Komi. So, of course, as usual, all throughout those crazy fights, the game still remained about even. And I think this game was both very complicated. There was so much messy stuff going on in the center, but I also kind of enjoyed the sort of simplicity of Black's plan in the opening. Let's just rewind here to sort of, not really in the opening, but around here, when Black makes this huge move. I found it really interesting to think about, just to see KataGo in action, reducing this Moyo, which to me would be quite impossible to live inside. I think I would die with this as 17 stone every time. So it's very interesting to see such high level play where it's able to use P17 and D17 and the weakness of this black group down here to make life inside this area. Oh yeah, I didn't play it at this point. I played it here. Okay. Yeah, so that was the highlight of this game for me, to see this invasion play out. I hope you enjoyed this game, and thank you for watching.